It is worthless. Just like your concern, I am ruining everything and I love it.
Congratulations, truly impressive achievements.
Yes, naturally. Thank you for your continued support.
How could you laugh at this moment while I am still hurting?
Oh, come on. Save the drama for later, Grace.
What? What is this? Is he cheating on me?
We are just so happy to be here celebrating with all of you. Your support means the world.
Indeed, thank you so much for your generosity.
This party is amazing. Everyone looks incredible.
They do. I'm glad we came.
People greeted him with admiration, shaking his hand firmly and clapping him on the back, while they treated me like the lucky woman who had married a successful man. Whispers followed us at gatherings. What a power couple, they would say, their eyes filled with envy. Little did they know how fragile that image truly was. But appearances can be dangerously convincing. Behind our front door lived a completely different reality, one hidden from the world by carefully constructed walls of pretense. The man everyone praised had become someone I barely recognized over time. The kindness that first attracted me to him slowly disappeared, replaced by an arrogance that seemed to grow with every promotion, every business deal, and every new title he earned. It wasn't that success changed him overnight. Success simply revealed who he had always been deep down, stripping away the charming facade he had worn so effortlessly in the beginning. When we first met, he made me feel like I mattered in ways no one else ever had. He remembered the little things I said in passing conversations, surprising me with thoughtful gestures that made my heart flutter. He would call just to hear my voice after a long day, his tone warm and attentive. He would even drive across town with my favorite snacks, because I had once casually mentioned craving them during a late-night talk. Back then, I believed I had found a man who truly valued me, someone who saw me as an equal partner in life rather than an accessory. Looking back now, I realize I fell in love with the version of him he wanted me to see, the attentive suitor who knew exactly how to win my trust and affection. After we married, the changes were so gradual that I barely noticed them at first, like the slow erosion of a shoreline by persistent waves. First, the late nights became more frequent, stretching later and later into the early hours. Then came the mysterious business trips that seemed to multiply without warning. Soon, weekends disappeared too, swallowed up by what he called necessary obligations. Every excuse sounded reasonable enough on its own. Important meetings with influential clients, unexpected travel to seal a deal, networking events that could not be missed, or emergency contracts that demanded his immediate attention. Whenever I questioned him, he had an answer ready, delivered with such confidence that it left little room for doubt in the moment. Whenever I looked doubtful, he reminded me of everything he provided: the roof over our heads, the luxurious vacations, the social circle that opened doors I could never have accessed alone. Eventually, I stopped asking, not because I believed him, but because I was tired of being made to feel guilty for wanting basic honesty in our relationship. The exhaustion settled in like a heavy fog, clouding my once clear vision of our future together. Then came the promotions, each one building upon the last like steps on a ladder he climbed without looking back. More money flowed into our accounts, more influence extended his reach across the city, and more people began calling him Chief with deference in their voices. With every new achievement, something inside him changed, or perhaps it simply grew louder, no longer restrained by the need to impress. He started believing the rules applied to everyone except him, as if his status granted him immunity from the ordinary expectations of marriage and fidelity. One evening, after another late return home when the house was quiet and shadows stretched long across the floor, I gathered enough courage to ask where he'd been. He didn't even look embarrassed. Instead, he laughed. Not the laugh of someone caught making a mistake, but the laugh of someone convinced there would never be consequences. "You worry too much," he said with a dismissive smile that didn't reach his eyes. Then he added something I'll never forget. "A man in my position attracts attention. Women admire success. That's just life." He spoke as if faithfulness were an unrealistic expectation for someone like him, as if respect were optional, and as if I should feel grateful simply because he still came home at all. That conversation changed something inside me. Not immediately, but quietly, like the first crack in a dam that would eventually give way under pressure. After that night, strange details became impossible to ignore, no matter how hard I tried to push them aside. Phone calls that ended abruptly the moment I entered the room, his voice dropping to a whisper before he hung up. Perfume. That wasn't mine lingering on his clothes. A sweet, unfamiliar scent that clung to the fabric like a betrayal. Receipts from restaurants he'd supposedly never visited, tucked into pockets or left in the car. Names that kept appearing in conversations before disappearing just as quickly, mentioned in passing and then dismissed. I wasn't searching for evidence anymore. Evidence kept finding me, piling up like unwelcome gifts I couldn't refuse. Friends began acting differently around me. Some looked uncomfortable, shifting their weight and avoiding deeper topics. Others looked sympathetic, their eyes softening with unspoken pity. A few avoided eye contact altogether, as if my presence reminded them of uncomfortable truths. Nobody wanted to be the one to tell me what everyone already seemed to know, leaving me to piece together the fragments alone. Then one afternoon, I attended a community celebration without him. He claimed an urgent business meeting had come up, another convenient excuse in a long line of them. I believed nothing he said anymore, but I went anyway, hoping for a distraction from the growing tension at home. The event was crowded with local leaders, families, and business associates. People laughed, danced, and celebrated together under strings of lights, the air filled with music, and the aroma of festive foods. Everything felt normal on the surface, a swirl of joy and connection. Until I saw her. She wasn't trying to hide. In fact, she looked completely comfortable in her surroundings, moving with an ease that suggested she belonged. She wore colors almost identical to those my husband had specifically chosen for our family at official gatherings, a detail that struck me like a cold slap. She moved through the crowd confidently, greeting people with familiarity. Some even smiled knowingly in her direction. Then I noticed something that made my stomach tighten. Several guests glanced at me, then at her, back to me, and back to her again. Nobody said a word. They didn't have to. I understood everything in that silent exchange, the truth hanging heavy in the air between us. Still, I refused to create a public scene that would only humiliate myself further. I finished my meal with measured bites, congratulated the host warmly, and smiled politely through conversations that now felt hollow. Then I drove home, the roads blurring slightly through the windshield as my mind raced. Hours later, my husband walked through the front door, carrying the faint trace of that same unfamiliar perfume. I asked one simple question. "How was your meeting?" Without hesitation, he answered, "Long. Nothing more. Just one effortless lie, delivered with the smoothness of practiced repetition." He didn't know I had already seen enough to shatter any remaining illusions. He didn't realize the issue wasn't the other woman anymore. It was how naturally deception had become part of his everyday life, woven into the fabric of our marriage like an invisible thread. That night I didn't cry. I didn't argue. I didn't accuse him. I simply whispered one word. "Okay." He smiled, believing he'd won again. His posture relaxed as he loosened his tie. What he couldn't see was that my silence no longer came from helplessness. It came from clarity, a cold, focused resolve that had been building beneath the surface. Over the next several weeks, I stopped trying to convince him to change. I stopped asking where he was going, stopped checking the time on the clock late at night, and stopped waiting by the window with a knot in my chest. Everyone interpreted my calm differently. My mother-in-law believed I'd finally accepted reality and settled into my role. Friends assumed I'd given up, offering sympathetic hugs and vague advice about patience. Even my husband became more relaxed, laughing more freely at the dinner table, staying out longer without explanation, and becoming less careful with the traces he left behind. He mistook peace for surrender, interpreting my quiet demeanor as weakness rather than strategy. That misunderstanding became his biggest mistake, one that would unfold in ways he could never anticipate. There were assets I had never heard about, tucked away in accounts under unfamiliar names. Properties registered through shell companies or associates. Large transfers that made no sense on the surface but hinted at deliberate diversion. Financial decisions carefully hidden beneath layers of paperwork, each one a thread in a larger web. Nothing looked dramatic at first glance, but once every piece was placed together, a pattern emerged. And that pattern revealed something far bigger than infidelity. It pointed to a systematic effort to protect his interests at the expense of ours. For the first time in years, I wasn't reacting emotionally. I was thinking strategically, consulting quietly with professionals, and documenting everything methodically. Every document we uncovered gave me more understanding and leverage. Every answer uncovered 2 new questions, expanding the scope of what I now realized had been happening for far longer than I imagined. Meanwhile, my husband continued believing I had accepted my place in his world. He smiled at family gatherings, his arm around my shoulders for the benefit of onlookers. He boasted confidently during public speeches about integrity, leadership, and family values, his voice booming with false sincerity. Listening to him became almost surreal, a performance that highlighted the chasm between his public persona and private reality. The man who couldn't tell me the truth over dinner had somehow become an expert on honor in front of a microphone. People applauded enthusiastically, rising to their feet in admiration. I smiled politely beside him, playing my part flawlessly. Inside, however, I already knew the moment was coming when applause would turn into silence. And when it finally arrived, no amount of laughter, power, or influence would be enough to save him from the consequences he had brought upon himself. The preparation was nearly complete, and the silence that had once protected him was about to become the tool of his undoing. In the quiet spaces between our shared meals and public appearances, I found strength in planning, in gathering facts, and in envisioning a future where my voice would finally carry the weight it deserved. The dam was ready to break, and when it did, the flood would wash away the illusions we had both lived under for too long.